Today is the day of reckoning. Today is the day of truth. And today is the day of justice. Today, I will be doing my official New World review. I want to take you through the adventures and the story of a man who's played this game. A man who's played this game for over 500 hours. A man who's leveled to 63 times. A man who has leveled professions up to 200, crafting 17,000 linen gloves. I'd like to talk about all of those things today. I'd like to talk about the highs, the lows, the goods, the bads, and also I'd also like to not talk about the things that I don't know. I haven't really done a lot of PvP in this game, so I want to preface this entire thing by saying that this is going to be primarily a gathering, world building, PvE, dungeons, in-game character grind centric video. I'm not going to talk a whole lot about PvP because I don't fucking understand it that well. I don't play it that well. So what the fuck do I know? And I want to say a couple of things to preface this. I think that New World is a game that is in a terrible state but has a great foundation. And I think that the New World developers throughout the course of the month or so that the game's been live have actually improved a massive amount of things that the player base has wanted to see. Now, the New World team, I think in the past month, has communicated more with its player base than every other MMO put together has communicated with its player base in like a year. Now, I want to say with Final Fantasy hasn't needed to do that because there haven't been bugs in its game every fucking day. However, I do think that the New World team has done their absolute best to try and meet the players' expectations. That has been the downfall in some ways to what their goals have been. The development of New World has effectively been 3 different games. Originally, it was a survival-based action RPG with MMO elements, and this was back in the alpha of the game. Then after that got released and they did testing and they got feedback, they changed the way the game was supposed to be made. And they made the game much more of an MMO that's PvP centric. And as I think, honestly, my opinion of this is that after they saw what happened in Phase 2 in Classic WoW, they changed it to have a lot more of a PvE focus. And that brings us to the last year of development. So a lot of the PvE content that you're going to see is going to be content that was created really in the past year. And I want to put all of that into context so you can understand the amount of time and effort that has gone into that and the amount of progress that has been made. For all of the people that are huge fans of New World, I am among you. Nobody plays 500 hours of a game that they hate. And I would just like to enjoy it a little bit more whenever I'm actually playing the mechanics. And today, that's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about all the positives, all of the negatives of the game. I want to go through examples of those things, and I want to show you all what the game really has to offer. This is my character, as you guys can see. I got 60 on my old server. I was the second person to hit level 60 on the server. I transferred over to this server recently. Turned out to be a huge fucking mistake because the entire thing's owned by purple and I'm green, but that's the way it goes. All right, let's start off really. Let's talk about the end game progression loops. Now, in-game progression loops in New World are the worst in any real game that I've ever played before. So the reason why every single player is standing in this particular corner right here behind this tree is that by standing behind this tree, it causes the level 64 elite spawn to occur and spawn more frequently. And I want to explain why everybody here is actually in this position, why they're doing this. It's very simple. It's for something called the high watermark system. And the high watermark system is something that I hope the New World developers were high whenever they thought of. Basically, the way that it works is once you hit level 60, oh wait, the NPC finally spawned. So now we're gonna go over here, and this is the combat loop to progression in New World. So I left click this NPC multiple times while he runs around like a crackhead. It's actually not like a crackhead. He went into a T-pose because he got stunned in a position that he wasn't programmed into being stunned inside of. And after we killed the boss, I didn't get any loot or any sort of reward whatsoever because too many other people hit it and I got nothing. So what we're going to do now is we're going to move back behind the tree and that way we can get another 200, another 2-minute respawn, I mean to say. Now, the high watermark system is, in my opinion, one of the worst in-game progression systems that's ever been conceived in an MMO before. At level 60, you begin with your watermark system at level 500. And then, as time goes on, you will loot pieces of gear, and as you loot a new piece of gear, it has a chance to watermark your prospective gear that you will loot in the future. So you are looting 500 pieces of gear until you loot a 200 piece of gear, or sorry, a 502 piece of gear, and then you have a chance of looting a 504 piece of gear or a 503 piece of gear. So you have to do all of this up to 600. And I've done all of this up to 600. I have farmed my high watermark system all the way up to 600. So if anybody is going to say that this system is a cock in the ass, take it from the one who's been dealing with it for a fucking month. What you're stuck with, what you're doing here is you're just repeating the exact same content over and over. So the end game progression loop for people that are farming high watermark is to find a rare spawn that is not actively camped by too many players, and then to repeatedly kill that rare spawn ad nauseum. You just keep killing it for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and days and weeks and months, and eventually you'll finally get a legendary item, and then you'll be able to create these legendary items more often because your high watermark level will be higher. And this high watermark level is not just something that appeals or applies as a general number. This is something that applies for each individual slot. So if you have a high watermark level for your helmets, for your gloves, for your legs, for your chest piece. So you have to progress each and every single one of these up to level 600 and just higher and higher so you can get better rewards. Now, if you thought that was bad, it wasn't, because you have to do the exact same thing with weapons. And each individual weapon has its own unique watermark that you have to progress up to level 600. So not only do you have to loot a bunch of great axes or a bunch of weapons, but you have to loot a bunch of great axes. And you don't just have to loot a bunch of great axes, you have to loot a bunch of weapons that are great axes that happen to be high watermark upgrades, and then also hope that you'll get another high watermark upgrade after you loot those prospective axes. This system is probably the most repetitive and unfun in-game progression system that I've ever dealt with, and I don't really know why it's in the game. And I would like to say that I find it very funny that all of the complaints that I've had in this game were originally dismissed as me being a hater because everybody else that was complaining about me was level 25. If you make excuses for bad game design, what you get is a bad game. And a good example of that is the fact that we just killed this NPC again, and we got nothing. And it's okay, you know, you're not always going to get a good one. Oh, look at this. Right, body blocking. So New World has had the genius idea of adding body blocking into all areas in the game. And so anyway, if you have a weapon out, you cannot have another player pass through you unless you're in a town. I can run towards you, and this is done for the sake of immersion. And I think that the most immersive thing in the world is for me to be able to put away my weapon and then be able to transcend the mortal realm and walk right through people like a ghost. So you can actually avoid this body blocking, but you have to do it with your weapon put away. So I think that any argument for immersion in this case, in this case, is just completely out the fucking window whenever that's on the table. I think that body blocking has an absolute place in the game in PvP situations. But I believe that in every single PvE situation that this game presents, body blocking makes the game worse. It makes it less fun to play. It creates friction by trying to play with other people. And it makes players' participation in content actively work against other players' participation in the same content. The point is, and I'm going to take you guys through a few of the end game progression loops in the game, and I'll explain pretty much how these things work. So like this is one of the examples of farming for in-game items, and I just finished doing this, so I'm just going to leave this area, right? You guys have pretty much got the idea. You sit there in the corner and you kill this NPC forever. And then at some point you decide that you have something better to do with your time. Are there any positives? You seem to only be talking about negatives. Yes, that's because I'm in the end game zones. So as a general rule, I think somebody used a picture. Maybe my editors can overlay the meme on top of the screen. Never would put this on YouTube, but somebody put a picture of it was a horse. And the back half of the horse was perfectly drawn. It looked like it was drawn by, Salvador Dali, right? And then the first half of the horse, they were drawn by a 5-year-old. And then the head, I guess, was the end game, and that was drawn by a preschooler. And these people here are waiting, and this is very common in New World. They're queuing up effectively in this area, looking to go into this mine and farm out the chests. Because basically one of the main in-game progression loops inside of New World is looting chests. So the way this works is a chest spawns, and it's an elite chest. Usually they're guarded by elites. And in the process of this, you will loot these chests, and then they go on cooldown for 24 hours. And after the 24 hours are up, you loot the chest again. And that's the whole game. Now that we've begun the chest run, I'm going to go ahead and explain kind of how this works. So effectively what you do is you just kill these NPCs or you run around them. There's a lot of ways. Yeah, I'll explain it like this. The smartest AI in this game is the buffalo. The buffaloes in this game are smarter than any other AI in the entire game. And I'm not kidding. The last boss in Genesis can spawn boulders that fall on the ground. And the last boss can also spawn the boulders on herself, and she can kill herself with her own boulders just by the nature of the way that the mechanic works. That's the last boss in the game, and arguably the hardest dungeon inside of the game. So we're going to go ahead and go to our first elite chest here. We've got these big boys here, and basically every single NPC in this game is repeated about 50 times. So if you look at this Scorchfane Taskmaster, if you've ever done the level 25 corruption portals, you'd be very familiar with him. He's the exact same. He's the same thing. The level 25 NPCs are the exact same as the level 65 NPCs. And the same NPCs that you fight in the tutorial, you will be fighting at level 61 or level 60 out there in the open world. The peacocks, yes. So there are people that have been, we'll use this word, they've been bamboozled by Amazon into believing that Exile's Reach, or excuse me, not Exile's Reach, I thought about another bamboozle, to believe that Ebonscale Reach is a new zone with unique NPCs. The Chinese guards that are the musketeers are the exact same as the corrupted guards that are the musketeers here. The large samurai warriors that are using a two-handed sword are the exact same as the large NPC that we just killed inside of that cave. The tigers are the exact same as the wolves and the other cats in the game, like the lynxes. The peacocks that look very cool are just turkeys. And how do you know that they're just turkeys? Because they have the exact same loot table. They drop poultry and feathers just like turkeys do. So now we're gonna go over here and fight this guy here. This is a Scorchfane Overlord. These NPCs are just like the ogres in the corrupted zones, and they're just like the brutes. So they're really stupid. They're really, really stupid. So like as soon as you aggro him, he runs away. And obviously if you look at the way that this NPC moves, you'll see that the coding and the way that it's designed is very lacking. Playing New World is like riding a bike, and you only really need to learn how to ride 5 or 6 bikes, and each of the different bikes is an NPC type. And after you do that, you're never going to have to worry about anything again. Oh, I'll also show you how smart these NPCs are. So this is obviously kind of problematic, right? I mean, this guy's right here. I've got 2 NPCs on me. It's not good. He attacked me twice. Like, I've got to watch out for him because he's guarding this chest with his life. All right. So let's go. Oh, let's go loot this one too, and we'll get this one as well. Yeah, I'm smarter than the computer, and this is pretty much how the game works. So now we have the main boss. Now this boss right here is called the Leviathan of the Deep. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna fight him, and I want to show you exactly how this works as a melee weapon too. Whenever I want to actually hit him, and I want you to look to see how many actually attacks that I'm able to do. So I'm not able to hit this NPC with most of my attacks, and the reason for that is because the NPC's collision box is larger than its hitbox because of the scaling. See right here, as you can see, I'm facing onto him. I can't move forward anymore, but I'm not able to hit the NPC. And the way this happens is because the scaling for these NPCs is the same, and by increasing the scale and the size of the NPCs, it also increased the collision box accordingly, and by doing that, it caused this problem. And this is one of the endgame outdoor bosses here. And yeah, I think I want to emphasize this again now that there's not really quite as many NPCs around. How big of a problem it is that the collision box for the bosses is, or some of these larger NPCs, is larger than their hitbox. So you have to, sometimes if you face your character looking up in melee and you look up into their asshole and you swing at them, it will cause your attacks to hit. And the only thing that costs you is your own sanity. Now, another one of the endgame activities is corruption portals. Now, the way corruption portals work are very simple. This is a low-level one. Is you just go over here and you have to kill some NPCs in the area, and then after a while, the portal closes. I'm gonna just go ahead and do it myself. I think also, like, the one thing that I would like to see added into the game is for them to add a feature that allows you to turn off combat music. Because I'm sure that you guys have probably had the same experience that I have, and you're listening to the nice, calming, soothing track, and you, oh, this is, look at this. This is the same type of NPC that we fought at level 65, and let's see what he's gonna do. He does an attack, and then he does another attack, okay. 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 So this is the same boss, or same elite NPC that was there at the level 65 area. He does have a lot of health. There we go. All right, so he's dead. And now we just wait right here, and I can use this. Usually these portals take longer than anything else, too. Everything else is much faster. The other types of portals, I mean to say. And so there are the smaller ones like this one, then the larger ones. The larger ones give obviously better rewards, and they require more people. So it's pretty simple, you know, what you can expect to do with that. So an example of the combat music here is like right here. Every time that you aggro these ancient NPCs, please just give us an option and just have a toggle enable combat music, and just take the toggle and allow people to turn it off. We're gonna do Garden of Genesis. This is one of the harder dungeons in the game. It's one of the end game dungeons, and I want to take you guys through Garden of Genesis and just kind of explain to you pretty much how it plays. So this is Garden of Genesis. I can obtain legendaries from this based off of my watermark. So we'll see what we get. So this NPC here is the exact same as the level 30 NPCs. So you can see right there, he'll cast a couple of different abilities. This NPC, many of the mini bosses in the game, and by many, I mean every single one of them, is actually nothing unique or nothing special. It's just one of the, I don't know why I moved out of my buff there, probably because I'm just talking. It is just higher health versions of existing mobs. There's nothing special about any of these. Looks pretty boring, to be honest. And I think that's really what the issue is that a lot of these dungeons, like if you look at the dungeons from a visual perspective, they are incredible. These dungeons, if you just look at the worlds that they've made, this is amazing. But the problem is the fact that it's like you have a brand new, like beautiful, like $1 million home, and inside of the home you have a bunch of stuff that you got from off the side of the road. Combat feels so generic and boring. Yeah, like, so he does a grip, he'll like pull you in, and sometimes he'll also pull out the spear and he'll throw it at somebody at range. Pretty easy to avoid. I wasn't paying attention at the beginning and I got hit by it like an idiot. But as you can see here, he pretty much just like gets a stamina bar depleted, and then you just wait for him to do that again. So based off of the color of the bag, you could get a legendary if it's orange like it is there. If it's green, it's a green item. So we'll see if we got a legendary here. I got blight seeds, so unfortunately not. So another little fun fact with the chests is that the chests inside of the dungeons do not scale with your watermark. So even though this is an expedition chest, the items that I'm going to receive from this chest will be item level 500, 502, 505, 509, 504. It's bugged, yeah, and it's been bugged like this for the entire time. But yeah, doing big dick damage in this game does definitely feel good. Okay, all right, here we go, here we fucking go. Nice. See, this is so fucking fun to me. Like, getting these mobs grouped up and, like, knowing I'm doing max fucking damage to them is awesome. This guy's trying to fucking kill me, though. I'll just avoid him. And this game does function the same as, like, iframes in Dark Souls. Where, like, basically the... if you're in the dodge animation, your character is effectively immune to damage. I don't have any, oh, you cannot trade items inside of expeditions. So, if you want to trade, like, your friend, like, a coating or, like, a potion or something like that, you can't do that because you can't trade items inside of expeditions. So this is the last boss. This place looks sick. Yeah, this looks awesome, right? And, like, again, like, the Lazarus looks even better. I think Lazarus is an even more cool-looking area. So this boss, she'll occasionally, she'll channel something onto somebody. It puts, like, a void zone under them, a poison zone that they have to run out of. She also does, like, an attack, and she'll do a slam. It's, like, a triple attack. The slam's the last part of the attack. Another slam right there. You can just move right out of it. She also does, like, a frontal cone, like, scream thing that can, like, one-shot cast her, so you don't want to stand in front of her. Besides that, yeah, there's the scream. Does a lot of damage. Then also besides that, she spawns these like little balls. I don't really know what the balls do, honestly. Doesn't really matter. Sometimes she'll target a random range player. Oh, here we go. So she casts that on somebody, and then it puts like poison on the ground. And it didn't cast because we pushed her into a transition. She'll turn into this little thing and teleport around. You just have to roll out. And she spawns 2 ads, you have to kill 2. And the impact of her coming back up does a lot of damage. If you die twice in a boss fight, oh, you have to roll out of those. So she spawns blocks too. I'm gonna move out of this, so watch what happens. So like as this is happening, I run and I roll out of it to immune to damage. So what we have to do here is just make sure that we get behind the rocks whenever she does the big AoE. It's pretty simple. Here's the big one. And so you just get right behind this, and it's a pretty simple line of sight mechanic. There we go. And again, like, all these mechanics are very, very simple. Like, you can fuck them up, and they do a lot of damage, but they're not really, like, they're not hard. There we go. All right. Oh, also, sometimes she can spawn the poison underneath her, and this victory animation here that locks your character in can kill you. Scripted? I swear it was not scripted. Usually it's the poison that... Okay. Alright. You guys ready to see the loot? Alright, let's see what we get. I'm not seeing any orange items. Great. So pretty much what we just did there is we wasted about an hour. So we basically just got fucked in the ass. Yeah, anyway, let's go back over. We're going to go to Windsward, and we're going to talk about some of the other stuff in the game. So the towns and the way that the towns progress and the way that they put up, you know, they put up like this little thing for like the guild that's able, I think it's called like Lena or something. The guild that completes or takes over the area. I think this is really cool. Each of the different towns that you go to have these different areas that you can craft things in. Like you go over to the forge, and based off of the tier of the forge, you're able to level up, and you're able to level these up as a town together. And through doing that, you unlock other items that you can craft with. I think this is cool. I like this. Overall, I think that the way that the towns are designed to progress over time and for the different work areas to become a higher level based off of how many people are using them, I think this is really cool. And I like this a lot. The towns and being in the towns is really nice. One of the negatives about the towns is the fact that a lot of them, they're very similar. Almost all of the towns look the same. They have the same general layout. They're using the same different buildings. It's very, very much the same. So let's go ahead and take a mental picture of this town right here. And credit to Josh Strife Hayes for finding this. This is like in Algebra 2, whenever you copy your friend's work and both of you end up failing because it's so obvious that he cheated. Yeah, it's been slightly rotated. So the towns in general, I really like the music in the towns. I like the feel in the towns. Just in general, I enjoy the towns. I think that they're very, very cool. Like, my house is pretty much a shithole, but overall, it's nice. I wish that there were more reasons to go and visit these other houses in the game. There's not really a whole lot of them. You get to do little small things like milking the cow. You can go pick up the honey. And I love this. This is great. Like, you get to do this little thing, and it's just adds a little bit of flavor to the game, and it makes you feel like you're actually interacting with the world. So leveling in the game, although it is extremely repetitive, is in general for me nice. You level up in the game. Basically, the best way to level up for anybody who's not 60 yet is to do these missions here on the town board. You just turn in these different resources, and I think that New World does a really great job of actually giving people who are crafters a meaningful way of leveling up. You can level up in New World to 60 and do almost no combat whatsoever. All you do is you just craft and you gather. And the fact that New World has a system for doing that is incredible. And I do think that the town project boards do get very repetitive. And the questing in general. Let me explain what the questing is, right? So there are 3 quests in the game. There is a quest where you have to kill a certain amount of NPCs. There's a quest where you have to loot a certain amount of boxes. And there's also a quest where you have to loot a certain item off of an NPC. And then, to be fair, let's just go to number 4. There's also quests where you have to kill one singular NPC. Inside of that right there that I just explained, I have just explained 85% of all of the quests in the entire game. That's it. The questing in the game is the most abysmal thing about it. And if I were to say what one of the most important things for them to do is, the most important things, oh, here we go. Here's 2 more quests that I just randomly picked up. Search for 3 chests and defeat 5 pirates. Well, we've never seen that before, have we? In my opinion, questing would actually be much more enjoyable if the player did not have to run all the way back to the quest giver. If all you had to do was go out into the world and complete the quest, and then the quest would progress on its own, it would actually be okay. I feel like a lot of the frustration occurs because you have to spend 10 minutes running to an area, and then you have to spend 10 minutes running back. And there is already coding in the game that allows you to automatically complete quests once the criteria is met. The way that you know that is that if you ever did any of the 580 weapon quest lines, they automatically complete and automatically reward you whenever you complete the objectives. I don't care about immersion. I don't care about any of this stuff if the immersion comes at the cost of gameplay. Like, for example, I find this incredibly immersive. I look out at this view, and I think this is fucking beautiful. I think that the way this game looks, the rocks, and just looking out over the vastness of the game, I think this is fucking amazing. And I love just being in this world. And to me, that is immersive enough. I don't need to have to return the items to the quests. I need to just be inside of a world that makes me feel like I'm in a different place than my room. And then also, like, you have the sounds in the game. Like, you know, it feels good to do things like this, to mine these things. You have like the echoing of the like the mining, like all of these very small things that are just game feel things. New World has done such an incredible job of being able to just completely nail. The atmosphere of the game is incredible. The problem is that there's not more of it. Just in general, the areas in the game, and I think also another thing that New World does a very good job at, and this is like something that's like very small that a lot of people might not really notice, but one thing that New World does a very good job at is it does a very good job at cock teasing you. So one example of cock teasing is the fact that this is a low level zone, but there are level 100 trees in this area. So whenever you're first leveling and you're first playing the game, you get to see those higher level resources that you're not anywhere near being able to cut down, but you can see them, and it creates a goal in your mind for you to work towards. And I think also the way that the trade skills are done, I would like to see another version of trees. Yeah, special trees, like creating more of these different things in the game that you can progress with. The 1 to 100 grind with a lot of professions I think is okay. But one of the big things that's missing out is that usually from 100, you don't get anything until you get up to 175. And what this really creates is a devaluation of the tier 2 resources, because so many people are injecting them into the economy by having to farm them through leveling their professions, that it injects so many of them that it devalues the resource so much that nobody really wants to sell it. So I'd like to talk to you guys a little bit about professions in New World and how they work. So let's go back over here. Okay, Forge Tier 2. Crafting in this game is really good until you get to level about 100 or so. And I think after you get to level 100, that's whenever crafting turns into being a massive grind. And I want to go ahead and show you guys what that grind looks like. Is probably one of the worst designed progression systems in the history of a system. So let's go ahead and look at what the best way to level armoring is. So in order to create the gloves and get up to level 200, and there are other strategies for this as well, but they are all relatively the same. So you need to craft 17,000 gloves to go from level 50 to level 200. It's just more effective to grind out the lower tier ones, because you don't have to use the reagents. So for linen gloves, if you want to level all the way up, you need to get 277,000 fibers, 277,000 rawhide, and 69,000 iron ore. For an individual achievement, this is astronomically high, and it sucks. And I think that on a fundamental level, the way in my mind crafting should work is as you get higher level, you want to craft better items. The fundamental problem with crafting lower level items and not actually crafting higher level items is bad. Like whenever you're level 189, or 85, I mean to say here, I think that you should be trying to craft the fur-lined or recalcum breastplate. That should be the goal that you have. You should not be spamming linen gloves just to get higher levels. And you go into the more valuable rewards. Let's look at a few of these, right? We'll look at Whisper of the Wood. So Etched Handguard. Where does Etched Handguard drop from? Has anybody received an Etched Handguard? It doesn't drop. Yes. That was a rhetorical question. I already knew the answer to it. Comments. Has anyone seen this in game? Where to find this? Nobody has gotten this item. So you have things like this Whisper of the Wood that literally are uncraftable. You can't make this item because the item that you need isn't in the game. And the game has been out for an entire month. That is incredible. How is this not immediately solved? What's sad is the fact that more people don't see this for what it is. You know what it fucking is? It's artificial gating. I think that it was all fucking intentional, and I think they did it on purpose in order to make people play the game longer. And I think that's why they didn't put these in the game too, is because they want to artificially extend gameplay by not adding features into the game. And yes, this is a conspiracy theory. And yes, I believe it. So we talk about gloves. Let's also talk about some of the other crafting, some of the other resources in the game, and how basically the bottom-up approach, the pyramid approach that they have to crafting, refining reagents. Sorry, not refining reagents, but refining materials causes this. So Ironhide, let's look at Ironhide. This is a great example. Ironhide and Weirdwood are worth less than Rawhide. And the way that crafting works, I'm going to go ahead and just explain how crafting works. So basically, in order to craft one Ironhide, you need to have a number of thick hides, right? Let's say you need like 3 or 4 thick hides. And then in order to craft the thick hides, you need a bunch of raw hides. What happens here is that the T1 resource have infinitely more value than the higher level resources, because the higher level resources are being injected into the economy at an equivalent rate at the lower level resources are. So the idea of how this is supposed to work and the way this economy is supposed to work is that the tier 3 resources will be injected into the economy at a much lower rate, which will make their value higher. And then as you get down into the lower level resources, they will be more valuable, or sorry, less valuable, because of how frequently you're able to obtain them. Do you want to know why? Let's look at the player base graph. This is what the player base graph probably looks like right now. So which one do you think is going to be worth more money? Organic player behavior injects more Ironhide into the economy, and it injects more Rawhide into the economy than Thickhide. And because of the organic player behavior, it drives down the price of Ironhide, it drives down the price of Rawhide, and it drives up the price of Thickhide. And Ironhide actually has the same problem that Ori Chalcum does. And I'm going to explain what that problem is. So this is the highest and most, the highest level ore in the game. Right there. That's the highest level ore in the game. Let's see. I've got a dime. No, what is this? I got a nickel and I got a quarter. So I've got, I can buy like I buy 5 or 6 of these. So a system like this only really works whenever you have a distribution that works kind of like whenever the population graph is like this, right? We're like level 1 and level 60, then it works. But whenever the population graph is like this, then it doesn't work. Thoughts on spread storage. So spreading your storage. Let's talk about that. Spreading your storage is a great idea in theory. And I want to show you how much it costs in order to move things over. So in order to move the solvent, 261 solvent from First Light over to Morningdale, it will cost me 535 gold. In order to move 196 Ironhide over, it will cost me 401 gold. It is cheaper for me to buy the Ironhide than for me to transfer it from the storage shed. I have a word for systems like this. Dog shit ass garbage. And you know it, I know it, everybody knows it. These storage sheds not being shared inside of the different towns and not being able to move things to different storage sheds. This is a DOA idea. It's a dead on arrival idea. This is a great idea, and the moment that it actually goes from being an idea into an actual thing, that's whenever it falls apart. And I think we should just probably talk about exploiting now and how New World Amazon Game Studios have handled exploiting and how that handling of exploiting will cause or create further exploiting in the future. I think that it's been no surprise and it's no secret that exploiting in New World has been a massive problem that has made the game worse for a lot of serious players. The reason why exploiting is bad is because it devalues legitimate accomplishments that players have inside of the game. So for example, I can feel good about farming out a lot of this gear. Now, some people in my company did help me a little bit with this, absolutely. But a lot of it, I was spending right fucking here, farming out hemp for hours and hours and hours a day in order to get my armoring up to 200. And I spent a long time, I'd say probably 50, 70 hours farming out resources for my void bent gear and farming out chests to sell different furnishing recipes, etc., for being able to afford the tolvium and the void ore, etc. I spent a long time doing this, and if I knew that everybody else that had the armor did not go through the same things that I did in order to get them, then that would devalue my accomplishment. Because I think that in MMOs, you have to look at the accomplishments that a player makes in the scope of the game as a whole. A lot of people want to be able to show off, and they want to be able to differentiate themselves from other people. And whenever exploits and other things in the game, like buying gold, devalue the integrity of the game, those accomplishments don't mean as much. And what ends up happening is that it creates a cycle of apathy and a cycle of resentment, not only towards the players that are cheating, but more so to the people who are developing the game. And also, one of the biggest issues is the fact that it encourages more players to do it next time. And there is always this was a phrase or a little adage, I don't know if this is something that was in all games, but I know for sure it was in World of Warcraft: exploit early, exploit often. If New World does not take, and they have taken, by the way, but if New World does not continue to take, I think this is a better way of saying it, if New World does not continue to take an extremely hardline stance against exploiters, against cheaters, against anybody who is abusing the game to harm other players, the only thing that they're doing is they're ensuring that more people are going to do it next time. And that's what happens. That's the worst thing about exploiting, and the worst thing about cheating is that if you don't punish people for doing it, more people start doing it. And people will view the integrity of New World as being damaged even a year from now because of the duping features that in many ways Amazon has probably already solved. Anyway, so being out in the world, and I think just the open world exploration of New World is the best thing about the game. I would say that the open world exploration, the entry level, the first 30 levels of New World is probably the most fun that you're gonna have. And I'd also like to show you guys one of the better looking zones in the game, Ebon Scale Reach. So Ebon Scale Reach is one of the big reasons why I do actually have hope for the game gaining a larger amount of diversity in terms of design. Ebon Scale Reach is clearly designed by like ancient China, or like kind of more of the like imperial Asian times, and I think it's very, very well done. By the way, again, all of this was created within 1 year. That's whenever they really did like a pivot towards like making more PvE content and making more types of unique stuff. Like this right here, the little towers, everything here, it looks nice. Like, look at that. There are few games out there that create vistas and landscapes like this that are this cool. Yeah, this is not just a 2D image like in Torghast. You can go on top of this tower there, right where the tip of my my staff is. There's like a NPC there that's just like the last boss in Dynasty Shipyard, actually. It's just a reskin. But you can go up there. And Ebon Scale Reach is one of the reasons why I have hope for the games. Oh, there's the peacocks. Yeah, these are basically turtles here. Or sorry, not turtles, turkeys. So we're going to kill this peacock right here. There we go. And we'll loot it. And it's going to give poultry and feathers, just like a turkey. And like the NPCs here, I think look really cool too. They function the exact same way as a lot of the other NPCs in the game. So it's not like they're really unique or special or anything, but they do look cool. And like this part's really the coolest part. You go in through here and you've got the two dragons and everything, dude. It's so fucking badass. It's so fucking cool, dude. Yeah. I think one of the main problems that this game has is the fact that there's not enough content, period. There's not enough mob variety. There's not enough weapons. There's not enough types of weapons. There's not enough types of achievements, etc. I think that the game is good, but people, I think, in many cases want more of it. It's an enjoyable gathering, crafting game where you're just able to sit back and relax and play. And I think the more seriously you play New World, the less you're probably going to enjoy it. The more that you take the game seriously, the more the cracks and the flaws and the problems with the game are going to become more evident. And the more that you are just a casual, craft beer drinking bearded dad that just hangs out and plays on Friday night whenever his wife's out, you're going to enjoy the game. It's going to be great. But the more seriously you take the game, the less enjoyable it's probably going to be. What I think New World needs desperately is a roadmap. They need the developers to come on, and on this stream even, I am willing to give the developers my platform and talk to them about New World and where the game is going to go. I will make a video with them. I will do whatever that they want. And I just want to have some degree of a roadmap, some degree of a direction for the game. Because right now, they're making a lot of great changes. They're making things that directly deal with problems that players have, like mob variety, things like that, the trading post not being connected. And I think what a lot of us want is we want a what's going to happen in 1 year. Are we ever going to see ships, like naval combat? Are we ever going to see, when is the desert zone going to come out? When are these other zones going to happen? When is Isabella's Lair going to be released? Which is the dungeon that's in Shattered Mountains. It's not available yet. I think that it would be great for us to just sit down with the developers, or for the developers to sit down with us, more so, and just explain it. Like, what is the philosophy behind the development of the game? And I really want that. So I guess for everybody who's watched this on YouTube, who's been part of the journey, the New World journey, I appreciate you all. Thank you. And thanks a lot for watching. It's been quite an adventure. And as I said, I think it's worth the $40. But don't expect something that's groundbreaking. Don't expect the next generation of MMORPG. I think New World has the potential. It has a great foundation to be a great game, but it's got a lot to go.